days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. It's a tough one because the San Francisco 49ers lost Nick Bosa for the entire 2025 NFL season. And if there's anything that's good that comes out of this, it's the fact that the knee wasn't completely destroyed. It wasn't as bad as the Brandon Ayuk injury. But still, Bosa is lost for the 2025 NFL season. It was a clean tear of the ACL. 49ers thought they had dodged a bullet. But when the MRI results came back, it revealed that Nick Bosa was hurt worse than the 49ers team believed, but that's why Bosa was a little hesitant to go back out there. And now the 49ers got to figure out how they are going to try and replace Bosa. And I say try because I don't know how you just go about replacing Nick Bosa. Now, they're going to try to find a variety of ways to simulate everything that Nick Bosa did. And yes, it's going to be difficult to use multiple players to be able to get what you were getting out of Nick Bosa, and just the effect of having Nick Bosa on the field, how an offense has to adjust, is going to be lost. That's just the way it is. But to say that this is catastrophic and the 49ers season is over, I think is going a long way the other way. I don't think this is good. I don't think this is easy to recover from, but I don't think it's catastrophic either. Lots of teams have suffered injuries to big-time players and still been able to be highly effective during the season. And though Nick Bosa is an integral part of the 49ers defense, it's not the linchpin piece of the defense that makes it go. It's a part of the team that makes it go is the pass rush, right? Nick Bosa is a part, an individual that makes it go. And he's a very important individual. When you look at how this roster is built, he's definitely very important. Now, the 49ers have started getting some help from some of the players they brought along, and Bosa was supposed to, continue the process of getting home and getting to the quarterback, and then these other guys were going to kind of step up, right? Bryce Huff was going to get back to his 2023 form when he played for Robert Saleh, and Mikael Williams was going to develop into a really good pass rusher, especially from the inside. And Yetur Gross-Matos was going to have the opportunity to play under 20 snaps a game right now and get that knee really healthy and be able to rush from the inside. And you were going to be able to get Sam Okuwanu some pass rush opportunities, and he wasn't going to have to play every single down. And now the 49ers are going to have to play guys a little bit more, play guys a little bit different. They're going to have to adjust on the fly because now you lost 97. And it is going to be significant. The 49ers are going to have to figure out if they have enough. Right, that's one of the things right now. As soon as you find out you lose a player, as a coach, you're looking at it and you're like, man, this stinks. Right? You take a moment, you look at it, you talk to the player, you wish them good luck. You talk to them about, what it means. You talk to your team about how everyone has to step up, right? That next man up mentality. And then you start looking at ways that you can find a way to get some of that pass rush, to get that edge set. Can we get a multitude of guys? Can I find a certain way to make this work? And that's what Robert Saleh is going to be tasked with. And it's not like Robert Saleh hasn't coached a 49ers team that lost Nick Bosa before. When you look at that 2020 roster, the San Francisco 49ers lost Nick Bosa in week 2. Robert Saleh was still able to help Kerry Hyder have a career year in sacks. Kerry Hyder had over 8.5 sacks in that season. Very phenomenal. He was still able to help the 49ers defense be a top 10 defense without Nick Bosa and without Dee Ford and without a lot of pieces along that defensive line. So it's not as if this defense can't still be effective. It's not going to be as good as it was. It can't be. It just can't be as good as it was going to be with Nick Bosa there with the team. But it can still be effective enough. Now, it's going to take not just the defense stepping up, right? Key players stepping up for this 49ers defense. It's also going to take the offense playing better, scoring more points, picking up things, and helping the defense along, especially early on, as they adjust to what teams do to them and kind of figure out their new rotation of players. But at least you know that you have an offense that's capable. Brock Purdy will be coming back. Demarcus Robinson will be coming back. George Kittle will be back in a couple of weeks. Brandon Ayuk is probably 3 weeks to a month away. Now that's looking at the bright side. It could be a little bit longer than that. But weapons will be returning for this 49ers football team on offense. So that's the good news. But how do the 49ers try and replace Nick Bosa? We're going to go through some of the options. We're going to talk about what the 49ers have in-house, maybe some things that Robert Saleh can do to help things along. And then we'll talk about some players that could be available if the 49ers wish to make a trade. And Kyle Shanahan said in his presser, he said, yeah, we're always looking to make a trade. But somebody else has to be willing to trade with us too. And that's one of the keys right now. Are there any teams that are far enough along? Because I've seen a lot of people say, hey, Niners, go pull the trigger. Go get this guy. Go get Trey Hendrickson. Go do that. But are the Bengals in a position to do that? Are there any teams in a position to trade away a player right now? I think that's going to be a big question. We're going to get into all that and more in this episode. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, please give it a 5-star rating if you feel like I deserve it. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. They're the title sponsor of 49ers Cutback. So let's talk about everything that goes into trying to replace Nick Bosa. And I always say try because you're not really replacing the player. What you're trying to replace is the production. And it might take a multitude of different ways. It might not even take just the defensive line. It might require linebackers making some plays and safeties making some plays. And everyone has to elevate their game. Everyone has to play better. Every single young guy has to develop a little bit quicker. Now there's higher expectations on Mikael Williams. Guess what? You're the 11th overall pick. You can't just wait to get really good. And he's been playing great. Don't get me wrong. But now there's an added pressure. Before, he didn't have to be a superstar on the edge bringing pressure in the pass game. Now there's going to be a little bit more pressure for him to do that, to develop just a little bit faster. Hey, you were 11th overall. You've got the talent. You're going to have to get a few extra snaps and a few extra reps. And I think Mikael Williams is going to have extra production as the season progresses. We've just seen him get better. So one of the things that's going to help is Mikael Williams is going to get better. Now, you were going to have Mikael Williams get better anyways, on top of what Nick Bosa was going to provide. But now you need him to maybe take an extra step forward. Maybe he was going to get 4 sacks this season. Now maybe you need him to get 6 or 7, right? And so you look at this, and I think that that's the first option. Mikael Williams is going to have to play better on first and second down, play out of his mind. He's been playing great, but now there's going to be bigger expectations on his growth. Then after that, you look at Bryce Huff. And Bryce Huff, we know, is capable of being a premier edge rusher in this league. That was one of the problems with the 2020 San Francisco 49ers that were trying to overcome the injury to Nick Bosa. They no longer had a premier pass rusher. Their interior premier pass rusher in DeForest Buckner had been traded away to the Colts. Their premier speed pass rusher out on the outside, D Ford, was dealing with a back, and he was out. You lost your first-round pick, Solomon Thomas, who presented some pass rush from the inside. And then when you looked at the team, it was really guys they brought off the street. It was Kerry Hyder, and it was Eric Armstead. And even then, it was tough for those guys to stay in the lineup, especially Eric Armstead. So this is a different roster right now when you look at how it's built than what you had in 2020. So it is a little bit different on how effective they're going to be able to be. And part of it's because of Bryce Huff. Bryce Huff is capable. And right now, people are thinking Philadelphia Eagles Bryce Huff from last year. But don't think about that. Think about the guy that's been chasing quarterbacks for the first 3 games and has back-to-back weeks with a sack. That is very effective pass rushing. He's affecting the game. And yes, people are going to give him their best shot. But guess what? He's used to that. He's used to teams chipping him and going after him. And the Arizona Cardinals did in this game. They know what that speed rush is off the edge. It is deadly. I mean, he is so good. 2.4 seconds to the quarterback against Spencer Rattler and the New Orleans Saints. That got everyone's attention. You know how I know? First drive of the game, they chip him, and try to give help to Beachum, their left tackle. And of course, Bryce Huff knocked the ball down, made a great play, but that was respect. And I think that that's going to be a big indication of what teams are going to do to Bryce Huff. He's now going to be the premier pass rusher on the San Francisco 49ers. He's going to have to win, and he's going to have to win big, but he's proven that he can do it. Robert Saleh knows what his strengths and weaknesses are, and he can use them accordingly. Now, luckily for the 49ers, Bryce Huff has been pretty good setting the edge in the run game because he might start. Now, they don't have to. They have guys that can set the edge in the run game if that's what they want. You're going to lose that with Nick Bosa. That is true. Nick Bosa was probably your most effective setting the edge in the run. Mikael Williams was rapidly catching him. By the end of the year, Mikael Williams would have been the premier run stopper on the edge for the 49ers. He would be better than Nick Bosa. He's bigger. He's longer. He plays it differently. He's just better at it. But Nick Bosa is the most complete defensive end the 49ers had. Pass rush, run setter. He can do it all. That's why he's one of the premier players in the NFL. So Mikael Williams has got to step up there, and Bryce Huff can do it. The good news for the 49ers is Sam Okuwanu has continued to be effective setting the edge in the run game. And they have Robert Beal Jr. on the practice squad who has been effective setting the edge in the run game. Now, Robert Beal Jr. showed a little bit extra in the preseason as far as pass rush, but make no mistake, he's not going to give you a lot when it comes to pass rush. He should. His speed, his athleticism, everything about him says he should, but you can't count on that. But you can count on Sam Okuwanu. You can count on Bryce Huff. You can count on Mikael Williams to add some pass rush. And you can count on Yetur Gross-Matos from the inside. So you still have 4 effective defensive ends. And if you still need to give Yetur Gross-Matos some time to get his legs underneath him and keep him in premier pass rushing situations where he rushes from the inside, or to even get Mikael Williams to rush from the inside, you still have the talent and the personnel to do so without changing anything of your roster. You could rush Bryce Huff from the outside and Sam Okuwanu from the outside. You could still rush Mikael Williams and Yetur Gross-Matos from the inside. You still can be effective. Now, it's not as good as the Bosa NASCAR system, and it's just not going to be. Just plain and simple. There is not the tools, right? There's not the hot rods in the garage that can make that happen. But you can still be effective. You can still be effective. And the thing that the 49ers have going for them is they have a defensive coordinator in Robert Saleh who is extremely creative when it comes to bringing blitzes and bringing linebackers and bringing nickels and bringing safeties. We have seen him be effective, mixing up coverages. And guess what? If you can make that quarterback hesitate, might give those guys a chance to get home, that extra second they need. So it's going to be production by committee. The way it is. And we need Bryce Huff to step up. We need Mikael Williams to step up. We need Yetur Gross-Matos to step up. We need Sam Okuwanu to step up. And we need Robert Saleh to be in his bag even more so than he's been when it comes to pass rush. It also puts a little bit more pressure on that secondary. De'Amari Lenore, you got to be even better, even though you've been really good. Renardo Green, you've got to be way better than you've been, right? Renardo Green hasn't been bad, but now we're going to need to get better play. Upton Stout, Marquis Siegel, you guys are going to have to do better. D. Winters, you're already making all kinds of plays, you and Fred. Now you got to do even more. And that's going to be one of the tasks that they're going to have to do. So the first step is just look in-house. Might be Robert Beal Jr. playing some of those base downs, getting elevated to the active roster. So that way Yetur Gross-Matos can still be limited in his snaps and they can get the best possible Yetur Gross-Matos when it comes to pass rush. He's capable. He's proven he's capable. I mean, they could still generate pass rush with this unit. It's not going to be as good, but they can still do it. It can still be effective enough to be a good defense. But there's all kinds of reasons why people don't think this is going to happen. I mean, take FanDuel, for instance, right? If you're going to bet at the FanDuel, they have the 49ers as a 3.5 point favorite and the under at 46.5. don't be surprised if this number doesn't start coming down. So if you want to bet on this number, bet now and don't waste time, because this thing could go down because of the 49ers and Nick Bosa. I think it's going to move. People are thinking this could be a catastrophic injury. So remember that, if you're going to bet the over under 46.5, pretty high number in this game. Maybe that number is because of Nick Bosa. So think about that if you're considering betting. But I want to talk a little bit more about how you make up for the production of Nick Bosa. And part of the problem is going to be the 49ers, if they wanted to add a player, they've got to wait for teams to be all the way out of this thing. The trade deadline is moved back a little bit. It gives the 49ers more time to look at it. But if I'm the 49ers and I'm John Lynch, yeah, I might make some preliminary phone calls. I might look around, see what people are asking for, see if there's even anybody out there. But I'm also taking a wait and see approach. And minus there being a super good deal that's just too good to pass up, I want to see what happens when you line up against Jacksonville with Bryce Huff and with Mikael Williams and with Yetur Gross-Matos and with Sam Okuwanu. And now that interior, what's Kalia Davis and Jordan Elliott going to do? Right? You start trying to see what Robert Saleh can manufacture with this defense and what those guys can step up and do. Does Nick Bosa being out put a sense of urgency in a Mikael Williams or, one of these guys on the edge to step up? Maybe extra snaps for Okuwanu produces more production, or all of a sudden they elevate Robert Beal Jr. and he gives you a couple of sacks here and there. Those are the questions. He might give you nothing, but those are the things you wait and see. That is the only blessing in disguise for this injury, is it happened before the trade deadline and not after the trade deadline. So depending on what the 49ers do over their next several weeks, how they produce on the field, how things are going when it comes to winning, will decide whether they are really interested and motivated at the trade deadline. And for the teams they want to trade with, those teams have to be motivated to make a deal too. First off, they got to be out of it. Right? They can't be hovering around an opportunity to make the playoffs. Those teams aren't trading away a good player. Like right now, why would the Cincinnati Bengals trade away Trey Hendrickson unless you're blowing their socks off? They're not out of it yet. I think it's more likely for them to trade for a quarterback than to trade away their best pass rusher. So you got to remember those things as well. Also, just because a team is 0-3 right now doesn't mean they're completely out of it. Now, it also has to be a player that's not a generational player or a player that's a foundational piece that the next coach would want to have, right? That the GM doesn't want to give up on. So it's not just any player that you can go get. So some things have to be set in motion for this to happen. And we've had people bringing things up, and I love when people bring things up in the comments, because it just gets the ball rolling when you're talking about these types of things. And the truth is, you can't possibly think of every single scenario, right? You can't think of it. So at GOC1230 said, which defensive ends can you see as a possible poaching candidate? I'm thinking Bradley Chubb. Dolphins are in a tailspin and could be becoming sellers soon. 100% correct. They are in a tailspin. There is a very good chance Mike McDaniel doesn't make it out of this season. There is a very good chance that they start looking at their roster and determining what they could trade away to rebuild, because you're going to want your new coach to have ammunition to be able to rebuild the football team. And it's not just financial ammunition, which you can create, but also draft picks to be able to rebuild. So, yeah, I'm sure that defensive players, there's going to be some guys available for the Miami Dolphins. You bring up Bradley Chubb, that's a possibility, right? Offensively, all the conversation, maybe a Tyreek Hill could be available. That's not what we're talking about, but I'm just saying, you're right. That's the kind of team you're looking at. And they are 0-3. So Bradley Chubb, I went ahead and started looking at his financials, because that's one of the things the 49ers are going to take into account. It's not just what they can add. And Bradley Chubb would be phenomenal for this 49ers team. When you're talking a guy that's 6'4", 265 pounds, that could absolutely bring pressure off the edge and has generated 3 sacks already this season. He's the prototypical player you want to add. If you told me they added Bradley Chubb in place of Nick Bosa, once again, you're not feeling the shoes of Nick Bosa, but you're getting a lot closer, right? You're getting a very effective player. But here's the problem. He is going to hit the 49ers for $9 million this year. And that's a prorated number, right? You count it by game. By the time the Niners got him in trade, working something out with Miami over the next few weeks, probably that's about what it would cost, which is very feasible. The 49ers would definitely be interested in doing that. Here's the problem. He's also set for $31 million in 2026 and $31 million in 2027. That is a hefty financial burden for a team that just had over $100 million in dead money that they're trying to get off their books because they've got a new contract for Brock Purdy, and they've added new contract for Fred Warner and George Kittle and Colt McKivitz, and they still have thoughts of maybe even getting Jawan Jennings done, if they possibly can. That seems like a steep amount. Now, when you look at premier pass rushers in the league, right, it's not even close. He's right. He's not even close to a Micah Parsons number. Now, he doesn't produce probably in that category, but I'm just saying, I don't know if $31 million in 2026 and 2027 is too steep for the 49ers. That might be too much, but I like the idea. And I think if the 49ers felt financially they could sustain it, it would make a lot of sense for them. Him with his hand in the ground, I think, would be very effective in this 49ers defense. And yes, he's an impact player. He's a game changer. He's another guy that you added. And it doesn't, like I said, reach the Nick Bosa levels, because Nick Bosa is great. Nick Bosa is a 16, 18 sack guy when he's playing at the top of his game. But if you told me Chubb was going to get 12, was going to get 13 sacks, with him and Bryce Huff, it would make a difference. But I think financially, that might be a little bit hard for the 49ers to swallow. But what about a guy from Miami, taking from, what GLC said? What about Jalen Phillips? And Jalen Phillips has been injured the last 2 seasons. That might scare every single 49er fan away. And rightly so. But Jalen Phillips is a legit technician with his hands. And he's only going to account for, he's playing on his 5th year option. That means it's an expiring contract. By the time this deal got to the 49ers, it would probably be in the same area, around $9 million. $10 million maybe. A 1-year, $10 million investment to get a guy that's got a lot of talent. And right now, he's not having a lot of success. But if there was a guy coming out in the draft out of UCLA that had handwork like Bosa, it was Jalen Phillips. And I'm not sure the Miami Dolphins are using Jalen Phillips correctly. I think he would do a lot better in Robert Saleh's system. But there are fears about injuries. Whenever you miss the last 2 seasons because of injuries, it definitely affects a team when they're thinking about getting him. Now, because of that, Miami might be willing to eat some of that money, a small investment. 49ers know that if you trade for Jalen Phillips and he's successful, you're going to get a comp pick when he leaves, right? So they might be willing to do that. He's on his 5th year option. I think that is a possibility. You just have to get over the injuries, and I know injuries scare everybody, and as well they should. We just are trying to replace a Nick Bosa with as a player that just got hurt. Now, Kayvon Thibodeau is probably the one I see the most. In fact, the injury hadn't even been done. 3 minutes officially announced for Nick Bosa. And I got a text from my guy Jay Hill that I do a show with, the Ed Hill Show. And he said, Kayvon Thibodeau, 49ers should call about the Giants defensive end. And Kayvon Thibodeau's in year 4. His year 5 contract has already been exercised. This year he's making $9.9 million. So we know that's not what the 49ers would end up paying. Very affordable. Under $10 million, I think, is doable. In his 5th year option, he's set to make $14.7 million. So not a steep investment, but because it's this year and next year, the New York Giants are going to want more when it comes to draft capital. What are you willing to give up for Kayvon Thibodeau? Are you willing to give up a 2? Right? A 2 last year got you Alfred Collins. A 2 the year before, got you Renardo Green. Are you willing to give up, the future for Kayvon Thibodeau for this season? That's the question. Is it a 2 and a 3? Because if it's a 3, it's a Nick Martin or an Upton Stout, right? Or it's a Dominic Pooney. Those are the types of investments you're having to make. And the 49ers have been so good in the draft. Is Kayvon Thibodeau worth it? Now, I think if you feel Kayvon Thibodeau is going to put you over the edge, this is the thing, right? I think Bradley Chubb would, right? He would give you enough juice that it could make up for most of what you're losing from Nick Bosa. I don't know if Kayvon Thibodeau does that. I think he's effective. I really do. But I wonder if he's going to be more effective than Mikael Williams by the time we get to the end of the season. Mikael Williams might be as effective or more effective than Kayvon Thibodeau. That's the question. So do you really need to make the move? I get the sentiment. I get the player. He's really good. But I question whether the 49ers are going to be willing to make that move. But if you own a business and you're ready to make a move, waiting for the right candidates to apply, well, sorting through resumes, trying to get in touch with potential candidates and finding candidates, but they're not actively looking for jobs, well, the future of hiring looks much brighter because ZipRecruiter's latest tools and features help speed up finding the right people for your roles, so you save valuable time. And now you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/audio. With ZipRecruiter's new advances, you can easily find and connect with qualified candidates in minutes. No wonder ZipRecruiter is the #1 rated hiring site based on G2 at ZipRecruiter.com/audio. Use ZipRecruiter and save time hiring. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. And if you go to ZipRecruiter.com/audio right now, you can try it for free. Again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And I don't think the 49ers are going to be able to use ZipRecruiter to find their next defensive end to replace Nick Bosa, but there are familiar names out there as well. And one of the names that was floated, and it seems like this happens every year when the 49ers need pass rush, is a guy that literally they coined a role after, and that's Arden Key. And Arden Key is playing for the Tennessee Titans, a Tennessee Titans team that's definitely going to be looking to build and get new draft capital. 0-3, right? They're building a new foundation with Cam Ward at quarterback. They might want more draft capital. Now, I don't think he's going to be expensive like Kayvon Thibodeau or Bradley Chubb or Jalen Phillips when it comes to draft capital. I think you could get him for a mid to late round late round pick. You could probably get him for a 5 or 6. I think that you really could get him probably for a 6 in a pick swap. He's going to make $9.2 million. Most of that is going to be prorated, so you're not going to have a huge financial burden, but you've got a guy that's versatile. He's been able to win off the edge in Tennessee, but we know that he's proven that he can win on the inside. Adding more versatility with a player you're familiar with makes a lot of sense. The fact that he's played for you, you know what he can do. Chris Kasarik was very fond of him, turned him into an absolute stud. He's got long arms, the ability to rush from the outside and the inside. I think that this is a real option for the 49ers. And I don't think it happens right away. I think that that's a phone call John Lynch could make because he does have the ability to fit in this system right now. Is he going to replace the production of Nick Bosa? No. Is he going to add a little bit? Yes. Right? A little bit more. Chisel a little bit more off. And so I think that that's a key player that they could possibly look at is Arden Key, and that's a familiar face. Why not, right? Why not? So it starts with next man up, and then you start getting into these guys. Now, there's a few other guys I do want to mention that I think are guys to watch. I don't want to get as deep into it. I don't want this just to be, every possible guy the 49ers could look at. But I thought that, some of them were brought up and then some I wanted to talk about because, people have been emailing and messaging me. But what about Carl Granderson? Carl Granderson, we just saw him when the Niners played New Orleans and he had 2 sacks in that game. And the New Orleans Saints might not want to give up on him at all. But the reason that he's interesting is because he's due $6.4 million this year. And he's under a 3-year contract, but there is an out after the season. So because there's an out after the season, this could be essentially a 1-year deal. Now, you would take on a little bit of dead money, but you could get out from under the big money that would hit. And we've seen how effective he can be athletically coming off the edge. If you could add another speed element opposite of what you're getting from Bryce Huff, it might be something to look at. He's very affordable. Would the Saints be willing to trade him? This is why I just mentioned him and don't bring him up as in great detail as the others. because I don't know if he's considered a foundational piece. They got him. They also got Chase Young, who they invested heavily in. So we'll see. But new coach, looking to make some changes, need to add some more talent all over that football team. Might start with trading a guy like Carl Granderson. Michael Clemens, who is playing for the New York Jets, played for Coach Robert Saleh, hasn't had a lot of production this year, but sometimes you add those guys knowing they can help your football team. A $3.6 million cap hit, very cheap. Now, is he going to affect make a big effect like Bosa? No. But could he add a little bit of depth? Yes. And then one that I'm kind of throwing out there because we've seen so many Raiders come to the 49ers and be effective, and this guy had first-round talent, a lot like Arden Key, is Tyree Wilson. The Raiders are struggling mightily. He's a backup, but was a top 10 pick in the NFL draft, and he's got 2 years left on his deal, and he has had some production. Last year he had 4.5 sacks. It's not like he hasn't had production, and we've seen guys who get in the 49ers system that jump, right? A guy like Arden Key. Tyree Wilson is very cost effective. $6.8 million this year, which we know it wouldn't cost the 49ers that much prorated, and $7.9 million next year. Very affordable. And you take a shot. You see what you can get out of the guy. I think you might take a shot with a guy like that. It would make sense. We'll see if the Raiders are willing to give up on him. He hasn't really developed into the player, but these are some options. So I think it starts with next man up. 49ers go with who they got. Mikael Williams, Bryce Huff, Sam Okuwanu, Etor Gross-Matos, Robert Beal Jr., more than likely. They kind of pick up the phone, see what's out there. And then you let this thing play out. If you're still winning and you're producing and you're getting the production from your D-line, you stand pat. Unless something opens up that's too good to pass up. And if a team that has a player you like starts struggling, then you go ahead and you see what you can do. And if you can make the right deal, you do it. So I think that's what the 49ers are going to do. They're going to sit. They're going to wait. They're going to see what happens. They're not going to let this thing get out of control, but they've got a couple big games coming up. And if they can beat the Rams, still get the production, they might not need to make a move. So that's the key right now. And then you just have to wait for teams to be ready to make a move. So let me know in the comment section down below if you think the 49ers need to make a move or should they stand pat for right now. And when they do make a move, do you care what it costs financially? What it costs when it comes to draft capital? Let me know in the comment section down below. I appreciate everyone watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening to audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, please give it a 5-star rating if you feel like I deserve it. Of course, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe. Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.